I think art should engage with people rather than with the academy exclusively. Art is such a rich human practice, and the art world is such a small subset of that. I don't like Damien Hirst's work so much.
I don't like him either.
I think Damien Hirst's concept is extracting money from people, and I don't think he would necessarily disagree with you too much. I think we're on the verge of some very strange things happening. What we will learn from AI is what is surface and what is meaningless and what is discardable. How do you have something that can make a simulacrum of meaning, but you know, given how it works, that it has no meaning, it doesn't mean anything. You have to look at a mark, anything, and the first question you should ask yourself is, why is this not nothing? I'm Jared Friedman. I am a multidisciplinary artist. I live in New York City, and my only studio now is in New Bedford, Massachusetts. My practice has been fairly esoteric over the years. Right now I'm running a food business, which I have come to understand as a strange but real art project for me. In the past, I've done printmaking, filmmaking, some technological stuff, photography, sculpture, just a whole bunch of, a lot of play. I came to it through being a commercial printer, and I started to sort of ask some questions about how you could make certain images using the equipment that I was using, and how you could sort of interrogate different things that get caught in photographs. So I started doing these time photographs where I was pulling a cyan from one moment, a yellow from another, and a magenta from a third, so that you would have these superimposed images with ghosts and all sorts of things to illustrate sort of the change that's happening in a period of time.
What would be your take on artificial intelligence?
I mean, I guess the question is, what do you mean by artificial intelligence? I think generative AI is pretty pernicious. I think the intellectual property questions are significant, but also I think that the work that comes out of generative AI has yet to make me feel in any way engaged with it, and I guess there's a huge part of me that doesn't want to feel engaged with it. I think that LLMs as tools are incredibly potent. I have a friend who's much more of an AI booster than I am, and I just used AI really for the first time to try to do a project. Mm-hmm. I had wanted to, it doesn't really matter, but it was impressive to sort of interact with it. I did a master's degree in creative technology about 10 years ago, which was really sort of the beginning of AI crossing over from computer science labs into practical, like the very dawn of practical things. So I had classmates who were doing these like early generative image things that were super weird, and that was kind of fun. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I guess, there's no way that it's not going back in the box. At the same time, I don't think that it has as many use cases as the people who have invested heavily into it think that it does. And it'll be really interesting to see how it penetrates our society. But I am not a person who uses a lot of AI intentionally. And like every time I get on the phone and it's an AI operator, it makes me very angry. So, curmudgeon. Anyway, that's...
how would you differentiate a difference between like a piece of art that is faced for the commercial world and the piece of art that is faced for like true art? Or do you think there's actually no difference?
I mean, I think there's differences. I guess I don't see anything as purely one thing or purely another. I think there's a commercial aspect to everything, and there's a personal aspect to everything. I mean, some of the most interesting work that humanity has created has been as a popular entertainment. Shakespeare is all written to amuse people and to to be part of the mass culture, not part of high culture.
Are you saying art should amuse people?
I think art should engage with people rather than with the academy exclusively. I think there's really interesting art that is primarily about itself and about these sort of internecine things. But I tend to think that I like art best when it is most accessible to people.
Yeah.
But then there's some very sophisticated stuff that's very accessible, and there's some very inaccessible stuff that is also not very interesting. So I think there's levels of coolness. I think people want the exclusivity of being exclusively within high culture. Yeah, I mean, it's a big question.
When you talk about the academy, like a lot of people talk about it because like they say art should not be in the hands of like the higher, like upper class society. But I think in the actual art world, like the trend of art is really shaped by like the collectors and the rich. So I just wonder.
Yeah,
like,
no, that's a super valid point. But also within academia, that's subject to the same forces. The people who collect art are the people who donate to art programs, are the people who sit on boards of nonprofits. And I think there's a place for that. I think I would like to get art out of the hands of that class of people. I don't think that's ever going to fully happen. It's a repository for value. It's that's a big, long discourse that obviously, I think public art and publicly funded art is really interesting. I think, there's an artistic impulse in basically every human. And so how do you engage with that for yourself? How do you engage with it with other people? And then how, of course, do you make a living off of it? Because that's a question as well. We're not angels. We're not ghosts. We have to eat and sleep, and some of us would like to drive nice cars. So it's a battle. What does it mean to have that kind of money? How did you make it? What do you want to do with it? How do you want to influence people? Yeah, I don't know. I suppose if I had a magic wand, I would tax that money much more heavily and give it to artists and creative people in a more democratic way. But, that's still going to be influenced by the elites. Elitism is a thing that's throughout human history. There will always be an elite. And then at the same time, there are hermits making incredible art just for themselves, for their friends. There's art is such a rich human practice, and the art world is such a small subset of that. I guess that's sort of what I'm thinking.
Do you think elite people buy art just to buy, or do they buy they actually appreciate the visual qualities?
I think it depends on the person. I think there are definitely collectors who are super savvy. I think there are collectors who are amazing patrons of art. I've done some projects that have had donors who are very prominent, but who really cared about it and who were in it sort of for the right reasons. I think it's all of those things. It's the way that art becomes a repository of value is very separate from the merits of the art itself. I guess that's sort of probably the easiest way to say it. So, but there's a lot of very valuable art that's very incredible. There's a lot of stuff that costs a hell of a lot of money that's really worth looking at. So, obviously it's not all crap.
Do you think, like these art that we know today, like if you and I never studied art history, do you think you can still appreciate it in the same way?
I mean, it depends what piece.
Like if you look at like Gauguin or Jackson Pollock or Mondrian.
Yeah, I think certain aspects of it you certainly can, and I think I would say that Gauguin is probably more easy to appreciate than Pollock without knowing what you're looking at. But
let's say we have 100 pieces of artworks, and so most of them are like pieces you've never seen before, like very like bad artworks by unknown artists, and some of them are like renowned 20th century modern artists. And if we never study art history before, do you think you can like differentiate between them, which one's good, which one's bad?
that's an interesting question. I mean, I guess it depends on how closely you want to look at them and how seriously you want to engage with them. Yeah, I think certainly there are things. I mean, certainly, like with conceptual art, if you don't know what is being referenced, if you don't understand what you're looking at, you're not going to take anything from it. And then, at times you do understand what you're seeing, and it's breathtaking. Like,
Let's say like Damien Hirst, for instance.
I don't like Damien Hirst's work so much.
I don't like him either. Like,
okay,
like you're saying, like if you understand the conceptual part, then you can appreciate it. And like,
right,
if you understand Damien Hirst, why like?
I mean, I think Damien Hirst's concept is extracting money from people, and I don't think he would necessarily disagree with you too much. No, I screwed the name up. Felix Gonzalez Torres, though. So he was a contemporary or 80s conceptual artist who was gay and who was making art in the AIDS epidemic, mostly about the AIDS epidemic. And he made this piece that's just a pile of candy in the corner of a gallery. And invites people to take it. So that's an incredible piece. Mm-hmm. Like, on the one hand, it's a pile of candy, but when you understand the point of it and the way that it works, it's tremendously moving, and you don't really have to. I guess you have to know how it works, but you don't have to know, what movement he's coming out of and what his influences are and where he fits in art history. So I think that there are pieces. I mean, I guess the question is, what is the value besides just looking at something? If you have to, there's this sort of sense of like, if you have to explain it, then you're doing it wrong. But that's not necessarily true. I think there are pieces of art that the explanation is sort of part of it. The project is part of it. And they can be incredibly important. They can be interesting. But does that count as art history? I don't know. I don't think so necessarily.
If the candy pile and Damien Hirst are both like conceptual and trying to convey a message, why are they inherently like different for you?
I think because I find the Gonzalez Torres project very moving, and I know, within the context of the rest of his work, it's so much, contemplation about time and about spiritual things that have been rendered into these very formulaic, algorithmic. I don't know. There's something about that his work that I feel enriches me as a human to think about it and to sit with it. Whereas the Damien Hirst just always sort of leaves me cold.
I find some sense of similarity between the candy pile and Ai Weiwei's sunflower seeds. So would you like Ai Weiwei in the same way as the candy piles?
I do, yeah. I find Ai Weiwei's work interesting. I haven't engaged with it super deeply, but yeah, no, I've been really interested by a number of projects that I've seen of his. I think just there's just some specific irksomeness about the YBAs that, like, Damien Hirst is particularly potent example of like the excesses of collecting and of this hyper commercial art culture. Sorry.
You must really dislike the comedian, like the banana.
I don't care about it. Yeah, I haven't, I mean, I'm aware of it. I haven't really thought about it. It seems like a token of the things that I don't find very interesting, but I mean, I think if I were to maybe engage with it in a different way, I might find it interesting. I mean, certainly questions about how commerce works, how we, what do you pay for? All of these things, I think they're interesting questions. You don't have to necessarily be a very interesting person to ask them. I don't, I'm trying to think, but so for a different example, much more popular example would be Banksy. And I think some of his work is really quite amazing.
Mm.
It is super commercial. It's super accessible to people. It's put out into public. It exists to be there. But there's some really visceral imagery that he's creating and some sort of potency there. Like the new statue in London. I think about it from time to time of the guy wrapped in the flag walking off the plinth. That is an interesting piece of art.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's out in public. And I think the graffiti aspect of his stuff, but it's also fascinating that he's so collectible and, hyper collectible. And yet he seems to be trying to interrogate that as well. The piece, but it's really instructive. The piece that destroys itself the moment it's bought at auction, the scraps of it are worth more than the original piece was. Like that, what does that say? And how do you get out of that cycle of being trapped? And I guess the other question, we look at art making, it's an individual thing, it's in all of us, it's an instinct, and it's a crucial part of being human. I suspect that an art market, a sort of repository of art, I don't know. I mean, I think canon is the wrong word. A group of artworks that people are aware of relating to at any given point. I think there's something for that too. I think there's always been sort of an art world, since at least the Middle Ages. And so I guess that the particular weirdnesses of it aside, I think it probably plays a part too that's worth something.
What do you think will happen in the future?
In the art market or in the world?
Art market.
I don't know. I think we're on the verge of some very strange things happening. I think what's happening economically around the world is very chaotic. And I don't know how art is going to play a role in that. I think art as a practice is going to be crucial. And I think amazing art is going to be happening very soon. And I think probably people will use AI and use these technologies to do something that's much more interesting than they're doing with it now. There's this tendency to lament, like, oh, everybody's stuffed into their phones. Well, that's just how it is. This is the most addictive thing you've ever gotten. So how are people going to integrate that into a human life, realizing that humans need more than just distraction? And already you're starting to see, young people turning away from technology, or people are relating to it in ways that my generation can't conceive of. So I think AI is probably scarier to us than it is to people who, I don't know. But at the same time, it makes everything so boring. And I hate there's a particular shade of beige, of cream, that's in all of these AI cartoons. And I guess it's just the average of all tones. There's certain signatures that I've just come to hate. And I guess my most sort of Pollyanna-ish optimistic idea is that what we will learn from AI is what is surface and what is meaningless and what is discardable. And so we'll work in relation to that. The idea of the AI thing is going to have zero value. So how do you create value as opposed to that? And I think it may end up showing us what AI can't do, which may be really important. I think it will absolutely I think it'll change the way that most normal thinking people understand the idea of meaning.
Hmm.
In ways that we can't even really think about yet. Like, how do you have something that can make a simulacrum of meaning, but you know, given how it works, that it has no meaning. It doesn't mean anything. And I think that's the thing, you know, I can be on the phone with an AI agent, and that AI agent can be infinitely competent. But if I can't recognize it as having a meaning that I can ask it to explain, that I can try to explain myself with, that there's something that is fundamentally missing from that. And I think that a lot of people sort of grasp that and don't articulate it necessarily. I don't know. The short answer and the long answer is I have no idea. I want people to keep. I mean, the impulse to make art is not going anywhere. The impulse to look at art is not going anywhere. The impulse to share culture is not going anywhere. And people have tried. You know, people have tried to consolidate culture industries before. And, you know, we lament the death of truth and think back to like, oh, well, there was a time when there were 3 channels and everybody agreed on what was true and what wasn't. And that's to some degree true, but at the same time, people were like, there's only 3 channels. Everybody else is shut out. So now we have this vastly more democratized world, but it's loud and noisy and you don't know what's true. And I strongly suspect, given the fact that knowing what's true is crucial to surviving, that we're going to come up with ways of dealing with that soonish that are innovative and that make sense to us as we learn to live with this technology, which is just here. So,
do you think meaning really matters in a piece of modern art?
In a piece of modern art? Yeah, I think it kind of does. On whatever level, you know, I mean, it can be very esoteric meaning. It can be very, you know, several orders of abstraction. I mean, the meaning can just be, this is a beautiful color, but it has to have some human aspect to it. And I guess I would say that is definitionally meaning, even if the meaning
like, for instance, would your appreciation of Rothko's paintings change if he didn't have much meaning, or if he didn't reveal his meanings?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't think he needs to reveal his meanings. I don't think anyone does. I think it's enough just to make it. And you can, like, there's spiritualist art from the 19th century where people sort of go into a trance and make this expressive art that they have no conscious. Like, I guess I think conscious meaning is not crucial, but some aspect. I forget. I have a dear friend who he was quoting somebody else, so I don't remember who he's quoting, but we were talking about this, and he said, you know, you have to look at a mark, anything, and the first question you should ask yourself is, why is this not nothing? And I think about that a lot. Mm-hmm. It's like, why? Yeah, Rothko made these paintings. There is clearly a why. There is something there. And so whether that's specific or general, or whether you're seeing it, you know, out of the corner of your eye or standing in front of it at a museum, it is a piece of human communication with the humans, and with himself, and with, you know, the world, the act of making art. I mean, there's so many things to make art about. I mean, even AI, like, you can use AI to do. I mean, I guess, and maybe the sort of post-cynical part of me would say, even that AI has meaning because somebody constructed the AI to do something. The prompt is that it's not self-generating all this stuff. Even if you told it to self-generate, it would still be, that would be an art piece of you telling it to self-generate. It may not be interesting, it may be stupid, it may be amazing, but there is still some, I don't know. I mean, I'm also a musician. I used to think a lot about, like, how do you know, you listen to somebody perform music and you can hear so much passion, or, you know, so much communication in how somebody plays music. Well, how about techno? Like, if I put a sequencer together that is making these blurps and noises, how does that have any emotional resonance? And yet it does. And it's because, you know, there is still a hand in it. It's just a hand that is mediated through this other thing. So I guess I don't feel things are quite as inhuman as, I don't know. I just really hate the way AI cartoons look. Just hate them. And I resent that that they always have 5 fingers now, that you can't locate the 4-fingered person or the 6-fingered person. See, that's not real. They're getting too good, which is scary.